The world in flames. Well, everything's popping off now, and it just keeps on going. And the more people shout for ceasefire, ceasefire, it ain't gonna happen. Why would there be a ceasefire? Why, it's too late for that. It's like the meme with the weak men who create the bad times or the hard times. That's where we're at, because we have so many weaklings, and it's largely the people who pose as being so strong. The strong man. This could be the twilight of the strong men, where these people keep turning out to be total losers. Trump, Netanyahu, well, now Netanyahu, Putin, where they put up a big show, but when it comes time to deliver, you just got to shake your head. These are real clowns. And I mean, maybe Netanyahu, he's still in the ring, he still can pull it, but what's really going on? There's all these hostages or whatever, and the IDF seems to just be kind of dicking around. And now it's the Muslims are popping off because of this Palestinian, this Gazan hospital, the Baptist hospital, was blown up, supposedly. Well, I pretty much spent I spent a good part of yesterday monitoring this stuff. As someone wisely pointed out, if you don't figure this out as it's happening, you can't really go back and figure it out so much. There's going to be too much propaganda around the whole thing, But if you track things and pay attention to them, you could figure them out fairly easy. And I'll say, at first, it seemed very apparent to me, to everybody, that the Israelis bombed the thing. There's footage I thought was somewhat convincing. I mean, it wasn't conclusive, but it looked to me like an airstrike. And I've seen people comment on it. I've seen a pilot comment on it, that it didn't look like a JDAM. It didn't sound or look like it, in his opinion. But I watched it over and over, and I've seen a number of JDAMs in my day, and from the ground, and I just thought it looked like one. I mean, to me, I'm like, it definitely was within the realm of possibility that that's what it was. It seemed more like it than a rocket, because the Hamas rockets, I've always thought, were dumb and ineffectual, that they even shoot they're an annoyance, but they're not really causing mass casualties in the Israelis. In general, they definitely get more people in Gaza killed, either directly or indirectly. They don't cause that many Israeli casualties. They're not that powerful, but some are more powerful than others. It's not all the same kind of rocket and payload and so forth. Apparently, the story goes that this is the Islamic Jihad, and they're firing more powerful Badr 3 rockets at Haifa. It may or may not be the case. I can't say any of this is completely conclusive, but as soon as the sun comes up, you could see that the hospital's not destroyed, and it doesn't look like any JDAMs hit anywhere. It looks like you see a burnout parking lot. You see some of the buildings around it are partially damaged, and the hospital is still standing. Unlike, it's not leveled with 500 people dead. That's somewhat preposterous. We've seen bigger strikes in Ukraine, where Russians absolutely targeted civilians, like the theater in Mariupol, where they put clearly marked it that there's kids inside, and they, purposely hit the building. And then, the usual MO is just say that, their victims are bombing themselves when they carry out these aerial massacres in Syria and Ukraine and elsewhere. It's always somehow the people, Russians show up and then people just start killing themselves to make Russia look bad, is how Russia wants you to think it goes. Anyhow, at first it seemed like that's the case because Israel has a propaganda pact with Russia. So they're exchanging narratives, they're building narratives together. And the Israelis say no, it was a misfired Hamas rocket, and it landed on themselves. It hit their ammo depot, and which was in the hospital, and blew it up. I mean, I thought that seemed quite far-fetched, that you would, and then it killed 500 people, which I just think is preposterous now. Like, there's no way that 500 people are dead from this thing. Okay. And so, I mean, you look at that and then you see what looks like an airstrike from certain footage. If the footage is correct, usually the evidence. At the same time, later the Israelis start putting out stuff that seems to show, the misfired rocket. And it's very convincing as well, because you could see the hospital in the clip. You could see it does the path of it goes down. One of them misfires, it goes down and hits, then you see the hospital is on fire. Some people say the timing might be off with that, but whatever happened, if maybe maybe a misfired rocket hits, it's not powerful enough to level a hospital, but if it hits the ammo storage or a fuel storage or something, it could start a fire or something, and secondaries go off. It seems like that's the case. As far-fetched as that seems, because how often, in my experience, things don't really, if you miss your target, you usually don't hit anything. I find people don't really get shot in the crossfire on accident. Typically when people are hit in the crossfire, someone later admits they were aiming at the, or, and so on, so there's civilian casualties, there's things like that, but I mean, it's kind of it would be a wild coincidence. As it happened, that's not what happened, because it looked like it's worse than it is. So somehow it looks like it's a misfired rocket that hit the house, started a fire, maybe a secondary explosion, and killed however many people in the parking lot and maybe in the surrounding area, depending on who all was over there. So it could be quite a few people dead. It is a sad situation, but it doesn't seem like what it was said to be. I wouldn't have thought that was completely out of the realm of possibility if Israel purposely did strike the hospital. I mean, so it was a compelling case where there's two sides that seem like they could be correct. I don't, there's however long before this they'd been kind of telegraphing an attack like this, saying that Hamas puts their headquarters in hospitals. So when they hit a hospital, okay, here we go. It doesn't seem to be the case that the hospital was not struck. And JDAMs can be fairly accurate and precise in certain ways, and they're not necessarily going to level a building. I'll say that. You could kind of, sometimes you end up gutting a building. There were guys, when I was in Iraq, when we worked with the former insurgents from the 1920s Revolutionary Brigade, they could call in, we could call in airstrikes for them after they joined our side, and we were fighting Al-Qaeda, Islamic State of Iraq, together. But these guys had been under U.S. airstrikes, and they kind of knew some of our capabilities, and so they would know a lot about the Al-Qaeda guys they were fighting, and it would be interesting because they would say, these guys are in a house, and this house has a room in the back that has a large storage of bags of rice and food, And so if you could conduct that airstrike, so the bomb, they'd expect a precision strike. They'd say, could you hit this in a way that you don't take out that room that has the rice in it? And we would say, yeah, we'll relay that and see what we could do, because some of these strikes could be quite accurate. And I mean, they're telling us this because they think, in their experience, it seems like something we could do, because they're used to that kind of pinpoint strike. They're used to seeing like buildings that are maybe gutted rather than totally leveled. So you could argue this happened. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, it matters in as far as the truth goes, but if it doesn't really change anything, because my stance on Israel, Gaza, is still neutral. Israel rejected Zelensky. Israel does not stand with Ukraine at all, but Ukraine does actually stand with Israel. They've put forth quite a few gestures. I'd say Ukraine is maybe pro-Israel, but Israel is not pro-Ukraine. Israel is still under Netanyahu's government, and this is a duplicitous regime. That Netanyahu got elected by campaigning that he's friends with Putin. He's friends with Trump. He's friends with Modi in India. So he's he's like a big guy, a big man amongst big tough dude. But all these guys have turned out to be whatever. And just like in real life, a lot of times you find that the biggest, seemingly strongest people are quite weak. They're weak at heart. They're not courageous, and they don't have any decisiveness to them. They don't really have like that kind of warrior attitude. They're not gonna come up with like a decisive scheme. I mean, as far as Israel goes, just from their point of view, like you'd figure they would be just acting. They'd be, it'd be action right now. But the IDF seems to be shocking low readiness. All the gear, the train. You wonder what the stuff's gone to. At the same time, I'd say we've cleared out bigger terrorist strongholds, say Raqqa and Mosul, and for that we used locals, like Iraqi Shiites. Some of them were better than others. I think the guys in the Iraqi Golden Division were actually good troops, but most of these guys were lower quality. And then people like these Kurds from like the YPG PKK group, and this is a very low quality troop who normally could not drive any kind of urban assault. It'd be preposterous. But, especially against people as dedicated and as vicious and defiant as ISIS, where they're ready to die and no problem just barricading themselves into a room and firing until they die or whatever. But nevertheless, you clear the whole thing out by just bombing the hell out of everything. You just scoot up, you call in your airstrikes, you bring fires to bear on whatever target is continuing to fire on you. You level everything, and then you move up. And then you keep however long that takes, you can systematically do that. Just with a very casual combined arms approach. You have guys on the ground shooting rockets, snipers and this and that. There's no reason to go hardcore CQB, get in there with that. I'm not suggesting that, but there's no reason the Israeli army isn't already moving now. Even, they have however many hostages. You say, well, if they run in rashly, they're going to kill these hostages and so forth. That's their concern. Maybe they want to be more careful with that. But either way, what are they doing now? They said they were going to go in. They got like world opinion is outraged by them. most people now believe that Israel still blew that hospital to bits. It doesn't really matter that the hospital is still standing. It doesn't really matter that actually the evidence doesn't seem to suggest they did it with the airstrike. I mean, if it was, I'd have no problem saying so. I don't mind calling out Israeli war crimes, and I can soberly discuss these things. It's just, I'm just trying to get the facts right, not trying to go like I don't know, that you see how many nutcases are out there. Like there's however much definitely propaganda being thrown into this by Russia, who just seems to want the chaos. It seems to be the case that they are enjoying this kind of chaos it's producing, and because who's putting all this disinfo out where they keep on using the clips of dead Syrians and saying it's from Gaza? It's been Russians who are doing that. This is what they do. They just spitball all this stupid crap out there. They know it's going to be debunked. They don't care. They're just confusing the lowest common denominator of the population. And just causing you to just waste all your time debunking stupid crap or whatever. Even though you might think, what's this benefit them? They seem to be playing both sides. Russia still has friendship with Netanyahu. They still are clearly aligned with Hamas, and to whatever extent. We don't need to speculate too much, because there's a certain amount of facts that are just apparent. Even Netanyahu, he doesn't want Zelensky showing up. He doesn't want any kind of Ukrainian association. Netanyahu says he wants a world front against the axis of evil, who he describes as Iran and Hamas. I don't even know if he included Assad. I might have to watch that again. I don't even think he bring him up. Maybe he did, but he's not bringing Russia into this thing, who's clearly the ally of these people, because he wants to keep that. But he wants like a united front, because Israel, these people want to attack Israel, and so that's everybody's business. And it doesn't even occur to him that there's other people at war. Seemingly Netanyahu wants what these conservatives want, which is to strip all the funding from Ukraine and give it to Israel. That's what they're still going with. It's still their thing, and however much traction we're really getting out of it, in a certain way, it's not. It shows just how pathetic the right, whatever you want to call it, the conservatives and the dissident right are, or whatever, and all these people, the populist, MAGA, communist, whatever you call it, they're not getting it together. But we are seeing is the kind of black liberation leftist is now at total odds with the more Jewish and Zionist kind of leftist liberal, where definitely that's the bulk of like the Hamas support and the Palestine support. It seems totally like they have nothing to do with actually Hamas, quite frankly, who is like a Iran-tied Islamist terror group, is dedicated to Israel's destruction. They're not dedicated to working class solidarity or like intersectionality, all this other stuff. Although they have gave lip service to BLM, so bad on them. But you see these kind of people are now. You see the squad kind of psycho, the AOC types who are very much disgruntled against Biden, and the reason is they see Israel as a white European thing, as an imperialist colonial project, and if these people say they're Jewish, you know, to them it's just a big joke, just as much as when Irish people try to, hey, you know, we actually are in on the post-colonial you know, shut up, you know, they don't care what some Irish, you know, the Irish always try to assert themselves into that, and it's just as successful as Jewish people who are, you know, they don't care. You know, this kind of leftist doesn't care. And there's however many Jewish people who are that far into it, you know, because there's plenty of anti-Israel left-wing Jewish people in America. And they're going, but obviously Hamas is got to be, you know, they don't take these people serious. They don't count on their support. And this is almost a separate battle. You know? It's people are piggybacking onto Hamas with their own propaganda, even though that's quite insane. And that's, I mean, this is a terrorist group. It's a designated terrorist group. You know, if people want to pick sides in the thing, okay, but you might want to consider that you're supporting terror groups is a good way to get yourself in a lot of trouble, or put on a watch list, or have to do extra searches at the airport or something. You don't want to get involved in all that. But here, so, you know, I don't know. That's my advice. Don't get involved in a terrorist group. You know, and frankly, like, there's this guy named History Speaks, who's like a big I don't know his whole thing, but his thing used to be like arguing with he's like some kind of right-wing thing himself, but he would like pick fights with, you know, right-wing people who deny the Holocaust, and he tells them about the Holocaust. Which I mean, I agree with him on that. I think Holocaust denial is false. You know, that's my position. So, you know, people give me a lot of guff about this. They'll tell me, you know, it's whatever. But this guy he's saying he's gonna make a video that's inspired by me because, you know, I'm basically saying, because he's saying that he's arguing that you can support Palestine and fly the Palestine flag without really supporting Hamas. You know, you're supporting their cause, but you're against Hamas. It's a terrorist group. This, I find, I mean, not completely like absurd, but not correct. Because who is fighting for, like, all right, for like Ukraine, I'll say, and on the one end, I'll say, you know, a primary concern is just the Ukrainian people and the civilians under fire. You know, so whether or not, you can come at me all day about how bad you think Zelensky is, how you don't like his comedy from the past, and you think he's a cokehead and a money launderer or whatever, you know, but, you know, the concern is nevertheless that there's people who are under fire from the Russian army. You know, but that's not necessarily why you'd fly the Ukraine flag. You do that because you want the troops who are actually fighting at the front lines, you know, to do well. You know, these are anyone who's fighting for Ukraine, you want to do well. You know, so I say, you know, like, people who are fighting for Ukraine, whatever capacity, or support Ukraine, that's what, you know, it's not like you would say, well, I don't support the Ukrainian army. You know, I feel bad that there's people under fire, but I'm not going to support like the army or Zelensky or something. Well, actually, you know, at some point you could say that you know, you can criticize, that's fair, but you have to kind of support the people doing the fighting, who are manning the lines, who are picking up the weapons. You know, that's what you're thinking of when, same thing, you fly the American flag. To an extent, I mean, the people who maybe burn the American flag, they do so because, maybe American military war crimes or something. It's not just because they don't like the American people or something. It's the politics of it, and what the politics are really about is what all politics are really about is most profoundly expressed with weapons and militaries and with borders and front lines and things. Other things like that are not necessarily, maybe they don't fall under politics at all. You could be a legit government, in my opinion, and not pay any attention to social welfare at all, or even educating people, or even infrastructure or anything, which has been the opinion of in the past of. Like Alexander Stevens argued that for the Confederacy. But what the government's job is to punish evildoers and to defend the country, or to pursue these military objectives and war. This is the true and pure politics. Not all the other stuff that people care about. So, to support Hamas, to support Palestine, and just say, well, I don't support Hamas at all. Well, who do you support? The Islamic Jihad or something? Or is there some Palestinian Libtard Battalion or something? And I'll also, maybe it might be best to just say, well, these are the people fighting, but I don't want to support terrorism or something. That's fair. But you might want to keep this stuff in mind. Who is doing the fighting? Because it's one thing to be concerned about the people of Gaza, but at another, you have to consider what the Palestinian cause is really about. And what it appears to be largely Hamas, and I'll say this is maybe a more moderate Islamist group. These guys are not as hardcore as say ISIS, and they're a commitment to Sharia and whatever, and Tawheed, or in the all their stuff. I wouldn't Hamas guys. I'm sure they drink and smoke and stuff. They probably smoke weed and stuff like that. So these guys are not as hardcore as ISIS, but they are kind of in that thing. This isn't a libtard group, but there is some kind of there are elements of a liberation theology kind of thing that just the same kind of stuff you find in Al Qaeda, where it's kind of you can kind of juxtapose it with the more Mad Cali kind of Saudi, where these are more Salafi Islamist, but they're more quietist. They're not trying to start some kind of revolution or something like that. So this is what we're dealing with, Hamas, and there just isn't much else. But it looks like these guys, at least the Islamic Jihad faction, and so I'm sure there's a few other factions that are active, but as far as I know, I'm pretty sure Hamas maintains somewhat of a monopoly on this, where if you go against them, they're gonna maybe execute you as being a traitor to their cause or something. Hamas can discipline the people in Gaza. Hamas has all this power, and they seem to enjoy the majority support. For whatever it's worth, that's just the facts. If someone says, well, never, and I don't think there's people might have their reasons to do. They may say, yeah, well, just like with Al Qaeda in Syria, we don't like Al Qaeda. I fought against Al Qaeda, but sometimes you say, well, Assad is a bad guy, and maybe if these guys are driving their suicide truck straight into him, then we're happy to facilitate, and that like, there's different ways of looking at it. I'm not saying it's all unfair, but the picture that a lot of people have, a lot of people get super energized about the Israel stuff in ways where maybe they don't with other wars. Say we have, like, there's all kinds of people I know who have still no clue really about Russia versus Ukraine. No clue. They haven't been paying attention. They're just not told. Like, they don't care. It's just white people under attack. So who cares? They would care if there's like if the victims were more like I don't know, brown or something, or like if the invaders were like Jewish or something, then they would care. They'd care about these kind of things. They care about the things that reflect in their domestic politics and in their own bigotries that can confirm or whatever their own biases. Then they're interested. If it's a more complex situation, if it's they don't, if there's nothing really edgy about it, if it seems more cringe to be against Putin or something, because Putin is more I don't know. People trying to act like he's like Mr. Based Chud president or something, when he just advocates for pure communism because he is a communist. It's what but people are more interested. That I've been talking to more people, and they're more energized. They want to figure out what's going on, and they want opinions on it, and maybe just get the facts straight. As usual, I think this is going really good. I think it's going good for Ukraine, especially where now the Russians are back on the attack, and we like that because their attacks they fail. And I mean, we've seen how hard it has been to break the front lines, even for our own guys. Ukraine's had quite a time trying to prod the lines with this counteroffensive that never really went anywhere, that the Russians were able to effectively blunt at each way, and never able to move fast. Now the Russians are maybe using the distraction to get more of their guys killed in these ignominious defeats. We're back to seeing footage of just mass Russian casualties and whatever, and that's great. And it actually is looking like, as of now, Ukraine has achieved more viable breakthroughs. And so this is cutting both ways. And also, in the cover of this, which could be a major factor in the breakthroughs, is the ATACMS missiles finally shown up. And this shows right away, because they said that they didn't want to announce this because they wanted to hit these Russians by surprise, which they did, because they hit their airfields and blew up like 9 helicopters and so these missiles are hitting them hard and slaying all these Russians. They took them by surprise. They weren't, and the Russians are not. It didn't cause a nuclear war as they always threaten. That they're just getting the pants beat off them again. Like I said, we needed more long-range fires, and hopefully this can contribute to a more successful counter-offensive. But this is done with a distraction, with the cover of the Israel-Gaza. So this is benefiting us. This is, for me, like, Israel versus Gaza is one thing, but Ukraine is our battle. It could, if Gaza or Israel, or if either side were like, hey, we want to be a U.S. ally, we want to be a front with, that could change things, but neither side actually have that. So far, Hamas obviously hates us and is a terrorist group, and it's not a direct foe, but it's not a big concern of us. It's Israel's concern, but Israel also isn't really. All they're doing is saying, we need your help. They say they want a united front, but it's a united front against their enemies. They only want a united front against their enemies. Why should we care? as it stands, I do, you know, I do kind of care. Like, I don't like Iran or Assad, and I'd be happy to just to do whatever kind of military operation to deal with these guys. And these guys seem to be completely coward. You know, they continue to threaten and all that. But maybe they can get it broad enough. If enough like Muslim, you know, states or keep rioting and whatever, maybe they can encourage them to really act under this kind of cover. But so far, this cover is benefiting us. You know, as much as people say, well, this is going to mean Ukraine gets forgotten. In some ways, that's okay, because we see by forgetting it, it's helped Biden deliver more useful missiles and munitions to Ukraine. So if people want to keep forgetting it, maybe we can keep, you know, because we don't have all these agitators now like Hinkle and whatever, all these freaks. Like that, the Justin Hinkle got over 1 million followers now on Twitter. And thankfully YouTube suspended him and his account and banned him. And however many people maybe were unfairly in the past suspended. I mean, I gotta say that's good for YouTube, because you can see how dumb our people are, how gullible that they fall for people like that. They fall for people like Hinkle. You know, so people should be protected from the Hinkles of the world. You know? So this guy, he's just completely agitating for Hamas. and but I mean, he will like shoehorn Russia into it, because that's still his thing, but it's not as effective. And some of the stuff is kind of infuriating, because he'll always say like Israel did this, imagine if Putin did it. And it'll always be stuff that Putin, you know, has already done. You know, he's quite a guy. You know, he's like the biggest liar ever. But as we see, you know, this is what people want. This is what people are into. So I'm sure he's going to get, Elon will help him get however many more followers for his MAGA communist movement. It really just shows what kind of trash we're dealing with. The MAGA communist. Whatever. You know, it's such a joke. And all their stuff is basically amounts to like crying about Israel war crimes and things like that. To me, I mean, if Israel did like, I wouldn't have been surprised if Israel bombed that hospital. Because it would kind of make sense, because everyone is already you know, there's how many people preparing to be outraged. So it's like, are you just gonna launch a ground assault and then the footage will come pouring out and it'll be just a successive buildup of outrages, you know, that drags on and only gets worse? Or you could just kick it off, desensitize everybody, and then, you know, a lot of other things just seem like more of the same, or not as bad. You know, if you got to do all this dirty work anyway, which I mean, like, if I'm Israel, I mean, that's how, like, just as easily I could see why Hamas does their kind of terrorism and these kind of ruthless tactics, and you know, and other people they see where they're coming from. I don't think that's unfair for people to. Well, I see why they did it. You know, that's not the same as embracing what they did, because you know, you say, well, they're in a really bad spot. It's not necessarily right, but you know, you can kind of expect people to behave like that, can't you? You know, if nothing else. At the same time, Israel, what are they going to do? I mean, if it was, you know, I mean, if we were in a situation where we had like Indian tribes and they're like shooting like stupid like rockets and stuff into town, you know, or like every now and then they do like a raid and like kidnap people and like or like scalping, like it would be no question that what needs to be done. I don't know if I need to get into it, but like I would just pursue this with the complete ruthlessness and with with the most final of final let's say solutions to the problem, to if you're dealing with terrorism or something, and that's going to be just really not in a ceasefire or a deal or something. You need real drive and aggression and ruthlessness if you're going to fix this. Otherwise, and the same can be said about Hamas. Both parties fighting it out, neither of which want a ceasefire. It's being pushed by the kind of more liberation-y leftists. They need the ceasefire. There's there's like Jewish people, leftist Jews who stormed the Capitol or whatever. They pulled like their own January 6th and to demand like a ceasefire or something, as if like it's that's what we should. How would we even do that? Is I don't even remember Hamas asking for a ceasefire. It seemed like they picked the fight. I mean, they can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like they picked the fight. If I was Israel, I would 100% want to fight because they picked a fight like that. Like, if you're just gonna kill all these people and you're just gonna like take that. They kidnap all these people. They're like, doing whatever, whether or not there's how much stupid propaganda about this and like the beheadings of babies and stuff like that. I mean, this was probably I said there probably were beheaded babies for all. I mean, it's not funny, but I mean, it's become such a dumb thing with the beheaded babies or something. If this did or didn't happen, it's like, yeah, but there's footage of them just like mowing down whole families and like random people at bus stops. It doesn't necessarily matter if they did it. It doesn't change things if what the details are in this. Sometimes in war situations, people hear crazy stuff, and there's rumors and liars and stuff like that go around all the time. But you always hear like, well, they made up the thing about the beheaded babies for their war propaganda. Okay, the war is going on anyway. It doesn't matter if this detail is correct or not. It's probably where some beheaded babies or something. The source on this was like a soldier on the scene. So typically you just depending, and if either side, if you have that kind of a source, that's pretty credible. You could say I don't believe him, I think the guy's a liar, but it doesn't mean that you've discredited the whole thing. It doesn't even need to be. It's not even like that's the state's propaganda. That's what they said is like their official reason for going to the war or something. It's the whole terror attack. But it's like people like Hinkle will just try to like hammer their audience because they know how dumb their audience is. So they just they lied about the beheaded babies and stuff. Hinkle's all day about now. I'm sure even now he's like going on about how Israel bombed the hospital. But you could look at the hospital and it's intact. It does show what kind of liars we're dealing with Hamas, where and frankly you get this across the board with a lot of different kind of Middle Eastern regimes and their Mukhabarat and whatever, all their stuff. Like the Baghdad Bob stuff it wasn't just one guy. I mean, these people are a lot like the Russians, where like the whole thing reminds me of like the Antonovsky Bridge, where the bridge is struck. We have footage at night of like the HIMARS system and it's kicking off these strikes where they're nailing that bridge over like Kherson, and so it's if you can take this bridge out, you really wreck the Russian logistics in over the river, which is what they did and why the Russians had to retreat eventually. But at first they denied all night that this bridge had been struck. They said we intercepted the rockets and they didn't hit the bridge, you know. And then the sun rises and the bridge has huge holes in it. And you're like, why would you lie about it? Like, you lied about this all night, and people had to, like, people are looking at the footage. You know, it looks like it's hit, but they're saying they deny it's hit, you know, and then it is hit. Why did you lie about it just for a few hours when it's like, to me, I would be thinking I'd be throwing away my credibility. You know, in the end, I could fool people for a few hours, but then the sun rises and my credibility shot. The thing is, we're dealing with people who have the memories of goldfish, and credibility means nothing to them. Like, we're dealing with people who are like just liars and scum across the board, who constantly will just justify any kind of lies and all that. And most of these people, quite frankly, describe themselves in our country as Christian, which I find shocking. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I am shocked because a Christian, I always thought, was someone who cared about the truth, you know, because so much of a big part of like Christianity is like, this is true. This is the truth. We are on the truth. And so if you follow this way, this is the way of the truth. This will save you. The truth will set you free. The truth was, you know, this is going to be your salvation. So once, you know, and not to mention, it is a lie to tell. It is a sin. It is a sin to tell lies. You know, but nevertheless, some of the biggest liars today are Christians, which only makes sense because there's how many fake Christians who are false prophets, and these are the most evil people. So it really seems like if you look at like the conservative thing across the board, I know like people give me, well, I'm not, this isn't purity spiraling or something. This is, you're dealing with maybe the most evil people, not necessarily just a confused, lukewarm, loser Christian, nominal Christian, whatever. That maybe that person isn't, you know, whatever. We're dealing with the actual like false prophet, liars who are knowingly lying and will tell you like these kind of lies are justified. They'll justify Russian lies. They justify Russian propaganda that spreads like degeneracy and filth and all that. Like they'll say, well, if they put that into our country, good. You know, that makes sense for them because they're destabilizing the great Satan or something. They're just, you know, is it by turning it into a satanic country, by encouraging all these, by, you know, poisoning our children. That's a cool thing for certain conservatives today. And these same people, it's quite the, I mean, and then these people are like the biggest Israel supporters for the most part, is the lying fake Christian, pro-Russian conservative. I mean, to me, I'm like, this is the biggest problem in our country. Is, I'd say, I'm just gonna say it, I think it's worse than libtards. Like, as much as however long you say these libtards seem like the worst and the woke thing, it seems like these people are just victims of propaganda, probably malicious propaganda from foreign countries like China and Russia, and also Israel, and also, you know, and people beholden to them inside our country, because our country is so heavily infiltrated with nothing to defend against this kind of infiltration and this kind of propaganda. You know, with the internet like it is now, the whole situation is totally, it is absurd, because it's like all your enemies just have access to your media and just run their narratives. You could say maybe it's good because it makes it everything fair or something, but that kind of objectivity makes for like a globalist thing. And especially when you have a certain kind of low-life liar who can always find attraction with other low-life liars, and the lowest common denominator, the scummiest people. And there's a strain of this in every population. We have, you know, you'll find a traitor scum class in every country. They're always there. You never have like everyone is good, you know. At best, you have a majority of people who are willing to follow good, more righteous leaders. You have more incorruptible leaders. You have some or just a decent program. At best, people are just going to follow people who are kind of leading well. But what we have now is people who are just led astray by every malicious actor who has access to their minds. These boomers hop up on Facebook and then they're told about like all these psyops or something, and then they're just like malfunctioning for life. They're done. Their goose is cooked. They weren't ready for all that. And so there's all these people who are just totally fried. You can't even. I mean, I don't even spend a lot of time with people anymore. The war has been going on for over a year. People have had enough time to figure it out. There's people who are still confused. There's people who have a good heart. There's people who are maybe on the fence and don't know anything, who are worth spending your time on to, when people just come out like, and they've clearly internalized a significant amount of Russian propaganda. Like, to me, it's just block. I don't have time to deal with people who are that stupid and that evil. And I think these people are evil because, it's evil in people's hearts. This is my opinion. My opinion is, I actually think that we have a huge problem with our own population, where the population has turned to just rotten people. That seems to be the case more than the elites. The elites they're pushing all this. Not necessarily. Not really. I mean, like everything that people say is kind of bogus. Even, people argue about Putin. Well, Putin is, a lot of these conservatives like Putin because he's anti-gay. But conservatives in America are pro-gay. So how does that make sense? It's because they're people of I don't know. I'll leave it to you on why, on what that could be. They're just people who run for every which lie, I guess. So there's a lot going on right now. This is kind of a situation we're dealing with. In the end, good situation. It's not a problem. We're dealing with the remedy for the whole thing is war. The real enemies, and you see why the most scum people want a ceasefire, is because the gig is up. They know if things keep on burning, people will find solutions to the problems. And these people instinctively know that, they are kind of, they know where they sit on the whole thing. But if this keeps up, it's better. You can see it's better for Ukraine. Ukraine's not getting more weapons. If they can successfully tie funding for Ukraine to Israel, then great. Even without Netanyahu wanting it to be like that, you just want it to be like United Front with Ukraine. Maybe in the U.S. that's how it'll be in a way, though. It'll be because the conservatives want funding for Israel and they want to strip away Ukraine, but they're also cowardly people who don't really stand for their principles that well. Hopefully the Democrats have, they're fine with Israel, but they more want to get the Ukraine stuff. Hopefully they don't stab Ukraine in the back. Hopefully, it's really taking a leap of faith there, because I don't necessarily think these are like good people, and I'm always surprised by when you see this kind of like libtard or something, and they seem to have like a really good heart, and they seem more altruistic than it's surprising. But I don't know, I'm happy to give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm not that interested in being right or proving my points or something. It's more we have like legit stuff at stake. The war is super real, and but in my opinion, I think raising the stakes for it, I think more fire starting, all this is good. And if the scope continues to expand, which it will, because people are so weak, then I think that'll be better. Or at least it's what we deserve. Is you tell people, well, you're gonna bring all this pain on yourself if you act like a coward. If you think you can just run from your problems and be a coward, then you're actually making more pain for yourself in the long run. They wouldn't listen though. So here we are. The remedy is war. I didn't make the rules for the universe. That's just how it is. And as it is, I think, I think it's great because, well, I don't know. We could go on, but maybe we'll just wrap it up. I mean, the war is good because hopefully people can better themselves in the process. Hopefully the country can better itself in the process, and we can kind of get our act together, turn things around. We could drive Russia out. We could realize the problems of communism. We could realize the problems of open borders and all these other threats, the threats from Islam and things like that. You have with war, you actually have to put your nose to the grindstone and figure out hard-nosed solutions. So if people want to do that in peace, maybe they'll do it in war. So it's great, because we have to figure it out. Unfortunately, more people are going to die. People are going to keep on dying. Hopefully it'll be more bad people than good. We don't like seeing people die in Ukraine, but elsewhere, like amongst the Russian soldiers, where they're getting hit up. Well, that's fine, and don't come crying to me about their 18-year-old conscripts. They don't have a choice. Shut up. What a cowardly, dumb attitude where you're gonna say a soldier who like invades a country has some kind of like excuse. A soldier, is fighting for his country. Is picked up weapons. He could have deserted. He could have done this or that. It's not someone you make excuses for. They're the enemy conscripts. You can't. It's not cool to fire on the enemy conscripts. They're only 18. It's actually your enemy's problem if they send all these people at you. I don't give a flip. Like, I'll say that. If you send whoever, if the enemy sends whoever, then they killed these people. Well, whatever. But yeah, I think that as much as people say that the escalation would hurt Ukraine and Ukraine will be forgotten and all this stuff, maybe this can help Ukraine, because Ukraine was already in a bad spot before this. We were losing support. Though we had weak-kneed Americans getting more weak in the knees. So, however this goes, we know it'll work out because we love God and they are huge liars. So that's why. That's why when my life is blessed, I figure I should stay on this path, even though it works in a different way than say Hinkle or someone who gets like mass popularity or something. But like it's like how do you even live with yourself? You're popular, but millions of people think you're dope, but like you're a piece of garbage. Like, for real. Like, like I'm sure that he'll be cursed, and then I'm sure everyone who tells all these lies and does all this evil stuff will be cursed, and they probably won't be able to figure out why they're such a loser. Like, what? Why? Like, why would this be the will of God when I support Putin or something? They won't figure it out. But if you're like just some creep liar, then That's what you deserve. Anyhow, anyhow, thank you for listening, my friends. Have a good one.